And Happy New Year to everyone. Today is January the 7th, 2026, and it is a Happy New Year. And calling this to order, Beverly, can we get a roll call?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Director Wright,
Here.
Director Brinkley,
Here.
Director Lassiter. Not present for the vote, Director Snowden, for roll call, I'm sorry. Snowden,
Present.
thank you. Director Massimo, present. Director Owens, not present for roll call. Vice Chair Moore
Present.
and Chairman Lane.
Here.
Chairman, you have an in-person forum for today's meeting.
Thank you so much. Item number 2 is approval of the agenda. You just need a motion and a second to adopt a special board meeting for January 7th.
Move to adopt the agenda.
Second. So properly moved and seconded that we adopt the special board meeting agenda. Roll call, please.
Yes, sir. Director Wright,
Yes.
Director Brinkley.
Yes.
Director Lassiter, not present for the vote. Director Snowden.
Present.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. We're doing the vote to approve today's agenda.
Pre-
Yes.
Director Snowden is present.
Yes, ma'am. And do we have your vote for yes for today's approved agenda approval?
Yes.
Thank you. Director Maximo? Yes. Director Owens, not present for the vote. Vice Chair Moore
Yes.
and Chairman Lane.
Yes.
Chairman motion passed to approve today's agenda for January 7th.
Thanks so much. Item number 3, we moving to presentations of state legislative advocacy presentations. You guys want to present one at a time. Thank you guys for coming. Actually, take a seat over here. Okay, good.
Okay.
Our first is Peachtree Government Relations.
It's all.
All of you. Go ahead. Well, welcome to the podium. I thought it was 3 different.
We're gonna debate each other here.
You want to sit here and now?
Yeah.
We can just kind
Yeah.
of stand right here,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
no problem. Who would like? I'll work this. If that works. Okay.
Good afternoon. The first presenters are representative from Peachtree Government Relations. The presentation will last half an hour. And
Right.
those are names, sorry. We have Mr. Don Bolga, Tyler Lewis, and Ms. Lauren O.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't know if they've loaded up our PowerPoint or not. And I assume the 30 minutes includes an opportunity for questions and answers. So we'll probably only talk about 10 or 15. That's okay.
We go.
Oh, you do? Okay, great, fantastic.
Do y'all, do you mean to pull it up here?
Oh, they're pulling it up now.
Oh, you are, okay.
Well, while she's doing that, we'll do some quick intros, and we've got some intros in our bios. I'm gonna let Tyler go first in our team, and we'll go through.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Tyler Lewis, Peachtree Government Relations. Next session will be my 7th session with the firm. So happy and excited to see what's coming up in 2026. Originally born and raised down in Brunswick, Georgia, so it's happy to be home in 912. And happy, honored to represent the city of Brunswick and a few other 912 entities, but excited about this potential opportunity.
And I'm Laura Norton, and I have been lobbying now going on, I think this is my 16th session. So it's been a minute. And prior to that, I started in the campaign world and doing fundraising. And I am from Smyrna, Georgia. So just a little north of Atlanta.
And we'll talk a little bit about some of the team members that aren't here. By the way, Laura must have started when she was 15. For to be doing that long. My name's Don Bolia. This upcoming session will be my 31st session down at the General Assembly. So I've been doing lobbying work for 30 plus years and been in politics for 35 years. So again, this is a little bit of our team. Some of the team members that aren't here, we have Kai Gallagher, who came with us from an agency. She used to work at the Department of Community Health. Before that, she worked at the state Senate. So she's been a great asset to us, working with a lot of state agencies.
And she's in Savannah.
That's right. She grew up here in Savannah. So
Right.
there you go. You can kind of flip through these. We'll talk about these as we go along. So I think our firm has a very unique structure that most firms, that I would argue that none of the other firms in Georgia really have. So we have a big bias towards representing governmental entities, and we've been doing it for many, many years. And we'll show you a list. You can see a list here of the governmental entities that we currently represent. We've certainly done a lot of work for other entities over the last 30 plus years. And I think we're really proud of the fact that we understand the appropriations process extremely well. You wouldn't represent this many different cities, counties, and quasi-governmental groups if you couldn't help them in that part of the process. And so that's a very key part of what I think you guys are interested in, and where I think we can help CAT in the 2026 session and beyond. In addition to that, we also understand the perspective of government. So we don't have to learn the issues you're dealing with. You know, it's very easy when you're a member of the General Assembly and you want to pass a law that puts down an unfunded mandate to a governmental entity. It's really easy to do those things because your background, you might be a farmer, a lawyer, insurance agent. And so your day-to-day life isn't in government. So they don't necessarily always understand it. So the biggest part of what we do is really educate. And I think we're really proud of the relationship we have with the members of the General Assembly on both sides of the aisle, and our ability to sort of communicate what governments do, why they do it, and why it's not always easy to quickly change things because something happened in their district and they want to pass a statewide law that affects everyone. And then if you go back to that slide with our two consultants. So in addition to the three of us and Kai, we also employ some fabulous consultants. Joan Carr has 21 years experience in Washington, D.C. She worked for 3 different U.S. senators as their chief of staff. She brings with her a wealth of experience, and she has been an amazing senior advisor to Peachtree Government Relations. And we're just so proud to have her on our team. And she brings a lot of understanding of how federal government works and how we can interplay. And she's certainly got a lot of relationships here in Georgia that we bring to bear. We also have Wes Taylor. Wes Taylor is a part-time, what they call RESA director. He's in the education world, former superintendent from Valdosta. And so he really helps us on the education side. So we're proud to have these two consultants that help us round out our team and bring a lot of experience to the table. And we talked a little bit about our government clients. So we have a Savannah presence. And so we currently represent Chatham County. We also represent the airport, the Savannah Airport Commission. And so I think that helps us specifically understand Savannah and the needs of Chatham County and the entire area here. As Tyler mentioned, we also represent the city of Brunswick. So from a standpoint of understanding coastal Georgia, we think we bring a lot of experience in that area. And I think we also are able to collaborate and bring in all of these partners so that if we were on the CAT team, we can sort of bring everyone to the table. And I think that's a helpful thing to do when you're in the posture you're in now. And just so you do know, we certainly did inform our clients that we're here today, you know, interviewing and talking about hopefully representing CAT. So Tyler, I don't know if you want to talk about a few of these things, but here are some of the bills we've worked on that we're pretty proud of.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a few bills that I think y'all may know or have worked on with us. But in 2023, we worked on the Port Authority Police Powers Bill, namely for the city of Brunswick, but also for the Savannah Hilton Head Airport, which really just gave the ports the power to make sure everyone's safe, law enforcement supported from the state government. In 2024, we were able to work with the Speaker's office on behalf of Chatham County to secure $15.5 million state appropriations for the Gateway Center. This was a huge success and an undertaking that took many meetings with many different folks to get it done. And Laura, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about the aviation funding next.
Yes, well, so with the aviation funding, for years, ever since we started working with the airport, obviously the main goal has been to increase in funding. We are completely outfunded in the neighboring states. And so in the 2024 budget, we were able to increase the funding by 3.6 million. We still have a long way to go, but this was certainly a start, and we feel like we're on the right path now. That's just the carve out.
Yeah, I thought you just go to the next slide.
Okay.
Yeah.
That one's not important.
Tyler, you may want to talk about these two as well.
Okay. So, one of the two bills we worked on last year in 2025, one was the Home Act for the city of Brunswick. We're pretty proud of this because it was the first ever homestead exemption of its kind that was based on how long homeowners had been homesteading. So it was a tiered system, and GMA kind of gave it some attention just because of its novelty. Also in 2025, on behalf of Chatham County, we successfully defeated House Bill 615 that provided some issues around Chatham's Recreation Authority.
One more thing I just wanted to add to some of the funding that we've worked towards is just it's the coalition of folks that we worked with. It's not only legislators, which we have great relationships across the appropriations, as well as in the executive, in the governor's office. But we worked very closely, for instance, with the mental health funding with DBHDD. Great relationships amongst all these different agencies, including DOT. We have worked hand in hand with them, and I think we're going to get to a bill here shortly where we can talk a little bit more about that.
These are just a few of the bills that we worked on over the years. I think that one of the interesting things that we do, because we work with so many governmental entities, is we bring new ideas to the table they haven't thought about. House Bill 170 was, and Bert, I know you know this bill well. At the time, I represented the Georgia Highway Contractors Association, so we were the lead group lobbying for $1 billion tax increase, which is it's no small task when you think about a Republican-controlled General Assembly, a Republican governor. But we brought in Governor Deal early on. He bought into it. We brought in the Speaker, the Lieutenant Governor. Everyone bought into this process, and we figured out how to stack it. It wasn't just one source. It was an excise tax. It was the $5 hotel motel tax you see. It was a series of small taxes that we stacked together to get that $1 billion number. And it was a very big coalition that we put together. So we're really proud of House Bill 170. And as you know, without House Bill 170, we would have run out of funding for new projects years ago. Effectively, as you know, the way GDOT works is they use federal money really for repaving other projects that don't require a lot of environmental issues. And they use all of that state money that we're generating, that $1 billion year over year over year over year, to really pay for all the new projects that you see happening. 2016, 2017, I'm really proud of what we did. We represented Fulton County, and they had become an impasse because they've always wanted a T-Splosh. And I know you guys have struggled with the T-Splosh issue here in Chatham. The city of Atlanta wanted to increase what they paid towards the MARTA tax. And so we did what we struck was a grand compromise. We brought in all the players from the General Assembly, the leadership in the House and Senate. We figured out that we could give Fulton County its first ever T-Splosh, and we pegged it at 0.75 cents, so not a full penny, just 3/4 of a penny, and then an extra half a penny for the city of Atlanta for MARTA. And those funds have done millions and millions of dollars of new projects. And we couldn't have done it without figuring out how to bring Atlanta together with Fulton County which, as you know, the Savannah-Chatham dynamic isn't always the easiest thing. So it's very similar. And then in 2018, this is where I talk about thinking outside the box. So we brought in Majestic Realty. At the time, Brown Field, which is owned by Fulton County, but sits in the city of Atlanta, had 400 acres in excess land that they had purchased through the FAA funding. But they needed another $4 million to build bridging between that land and their existing runway. And they just weren't going to get the money anytime soon. So we convinced the FAA, the city of Atlanta, Fulton County, to do a participating ground lease. This particular deal the way we structured it, will get Fulton County $100 million over the term of that lease in money that they were never going to see on land that they were never going to use. So this is just innovative thinking, and we've done this with many things, whether it's working to create special service districts for our jurisdictions, or to think outside the box on how they can find excess or new funding that they hadn't thought about before. And so this is one that I think is important. After the COVID, during the COVID period, a lot of governmental entities were allowed to meet in person, or rather virtually. And when it ended, some of those rules and laws got suspended. So we put in place a law that allows community improvement districts as well as development authorities to meet virtually. This is very helpful when you think about board members that are, in some cases, may not even reside in the state of Georgia. And we're having to try to commute to Atlanta or wherever, Savannah, to meet, and this allowed them to meet virtually. I don't know if we want to go through too much into these. These are just a few other bills we've worked on. Brunswick, new funding for CHOA and Brookhaven. In Brookhaven, in 2022, they needed to build a $65 million city hall. So we structured a special service district that allowed them to tax everything but single family homes. They only tax commercial and multifamily. So it effectively created a way that created much less friction among the residents of Fulton County, or of Brookhaven rather, and created a revenue stream that allowed them to bond out and spend $65 million to build a new city hall. So that's something we're pretty excited about too. So that's sort of some of the things we've done. We could talk about a few other projects and would love to take some questions for y'all.
Was opening.
Yeah, I'll add, so I think the two kind of big things that, and I think you guys know this from the articles that you read, this authority was left out of the SPLOST program, so capital funding is really going to be tight. We really need to look for assistance, and so I think that's a big one. So I'd love any comments that you have about seeking capital funding, and any experience you have with that. And then I heard you mention, and so we may talk about this offline, but heard you mention the 3/4 of a penny on the T-SPLOST. So we tried a full penny in 2022 that was narrowly defeated. This is more for me than other folks, but I'm really interested in a fractional T-SPLOST, and I think we could potentially use that to help fund CAT and maybe their capital needs as well. So I don't know the details about fractional and what the options are, and if you need a special carve out, to allow us to do that, or if it's already contemplated. But anyway, so we can talk about that later. That's a interesting concept to me, because I think obviously the voters spoke about the full penny, right? And so we need to be creative on what we go to them with, and if we go back out to them again.
Tag team on that, but we've also been looking at what Athens did with regard to being able to use the SPLOST that they passed, not only for council, but because it's particular, piece of it for transportation purposes. They were able to underwrite a significant amount of their operations costs. And that's really what some sort of partial penny type arrangement that would enable us to bring in a different and new funding source, and perhaps providing some ultimate relief to the traditional way we've been doing the transit tax. So.
Yeah, and in both, in that case, and another case that we worked on for College Park was something called the most tax. Both of those, we had to actually pass general laws. We had to get the entire General Assembly. It just couldn't be the Chatham delegation involved in it. So that complicates things. But by bringing in MARTA and bringing in Fulton County, and you really supplied energy from people who wanted transit and people who wanted road and bridge projects built. And there are really two sides of the political spectrum. You had a lot of people on the Republican side and the Fulton County delegation that really wanted these road and bridge projects done because there was some that North Fulton is just clogged. And there's certainly people in the city of Atlanta that wanted these transit projects. So by marrying those two, bringing their interests together, we were able to pass a statewide bill. In the most tax, it was a great example. As you know, about 25 years ago, the city of Atlanta was under a consent decree. And if Atlanta shuts down, to some degree, the whole state shuts down. You're the economic development guy. You know the engine that Atlanta is. And literally, they were under a position where they couldn't build a new building. They were not going to be able to put a new building up in the city of Atlanta, period, over 25 years ago. So they passed something called the MOST tax, the municipal option sales tax. It was unique only to Atlanta. It was a general bill that allowed only Atlanta to it. So 20 plus years later, Atlanta feeds into what they call the Tri-Cities, Hateville, East Point, and College Park. They couldn't keep up with all those billions of dollars Atlanta was doing, expanding pipes and whatnot. So we were able to pass a MOST tax that affected only those three cities, but it was a general bill. So sometimes you have to think, how can I do this? I may have to involve the entire General Assembly, but I think this region's so important for the entire coast, and therefore really is effective. And then you could bring in lots of legislators who understand how important this region is to the entire area. And to some degree, if you think about how important the port is, how important the airport is, we really affect the whole state. And so you got to get that buy-in. And there are a lot of creative ways to find revenue sources if we can bring in, and we have to probably look at some general laws. We probably have to look at maybe getting the local jurisdictions to create a special service district that may create a new funding source, and certainly other ways that you might be able to get those revenues. So we're pretty creative when it comes down to it. One of the first things we do, and as an example, we represent DeKalb County, and I can't disclose all the details of it. The first thing we do is I went through and we studied every law that ever affected DeKalb County. I went through the 1952, 1953, 1983 rewrites of the Constitution. We found some special powers we didn't know existed. They're on the books. We didn't have to ask anybody. But sometimes just doing your homework pays off. And that's part of what we do, is we do a review of every act from the beginning, inception of your authority to current. Was there something we're missing? And I think that's one of the cool things we do and bring to bear, because we've done this so many times. We know there's often something out there that's been overlooked.
Don, can I add something to that? Yeah, back to T-Splosh, I think what our team also brings is that we're three former campaign consultants, three campaign nerds. We literally dive into numbers around the table for fun after every election. And so, for our local government clients who gear up for their first ever T-Splosh or T-Splosh 2, we're constantly at the table, either giving advice or maybe, hey, what if we market it this way? Just because, whenever you hire a campaign consultant, it's different than marketing. It's different than general strategy. There's politics to it.
So I just said, I think you already answered my question. So I'm just gonna throw it out there. How effective would you say your firm is? And when you start looking at different things that you've already done, so you already answered that part. And also you answered the second part, how aggressive would you be for your clients? So it looks as if you guys are gonna be very aggressive when you start talking about going into certain interests that your clients have. And my third question is, how good is your relationship with GMA?
We have a very close relation with GMA. Not only do we represent some of their members, and so that puts us at the table with them. And so oftentimes we're actually helping them build their agenda.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a really strong relationship. We're obviously participate in their conference process, and we certainly attend those meetings. But I think because of our relationships with their members, in fact, it's interesting, we don't represent them anymore, but we used to represent the city of Alpharetta, and they were the first ever city to leave GMA, and we convinced them to come back. And so we think we're really good at collaboration. We're really good at telling people, hey, really, let's all work as a team, because we're going to get a lot more done than if we don't.
That actually goes to the next part of my question is, if representation created a conflict of interest between two entities. If you had, two of your clients who were, actually in, legislature, litigation
Yeah.
with each other, how would that cause a conflict of interest for you guys?
Well, we're not lawyers. We're not a law firm. So we don't have a legal conflict. The conflict only exists in the perception of the clients themselves. So what we like to do is we like to tell every client, this is who we represent. This is who we'd like to represent. If you're okay with it, we get the representation. Understand that at the very front end of it and let know that we can put a foot in each camp. And that way, we actually find that the dialogue goes better. Because now we're able to bring the perspective of both sides of the table, and we're able to do it, I think, in a very unbiased way and tell both sides, this is their point of view, this is your point of view. There's got to be a compromise. And I've been doing this for 35 years. I've never found a bill or a policy position that didn't have a true compromise opportunity. Now, not everyone avails themselves of the good compromise, but it's usually out there that someone wants it.
Thank you.
Did you want to circle back on PMA, Laura?
No, I was only going to add on GMA is that my husband's actually a mayor. So he's an actual member who sits, within the board of GMA. So just.
How do you deploy your team members? Do you guys all work with all of your clients as a team? Do you have a point person? How does that work?
And we like to swarm like bees. It means when you guys communicate with us, this is what always bugs me. I used to be at a massive law firm, and we go pitch a client and there'd be 20 of us in a room. And the person who never said a word is the person you end up dealing with. And that'll never happen here. All of us are copied on every email. We're fully aware of everything that we're doing. We fully communicate with you. And what you will get is before the session, you'll get a pre-session report every Friday before close of business. And that'll be midnight because we work late on Fridays. You'll get a report from us. If you choose so, you'll have your own individual ability to track through our platform. So we can actually give anyone on your staff access to our platform where they can track bills on their own, do their own queries. And then on top of that, we like to think that no one is more responsive than we are. So if you text me, I probably will bring in everyone in the group and say, here's the problem. We need to solve it. Here's some ideas. What do you guys think? Let's go after it.
We're good on time. That's no question.
Yeah, that's the last question.
Okay, this last question. I appreciate all the examples of all the successes you've had. Tell us about an effort that didn't go well.
Boy, that could be a long list.
Okay?
That's a great question. It's usually because people that choose not to collaborate. And in many times, the reality of the way the General Assembly works, it takes years to get something done. And I'll go back to House Bill 170. We failed many, many times. We had tried with a regional T-SPLOS, and it only passed in four or five jurisdictions. And the one that we needed it to pass in was Atlanta, and it didn't. So that idea didn't really pan out. No one really believed that GDOT was running out of money. No one believed it. They said they've got $2 billion a year, but they didn't realize that people are driving electric cars and they don't pay the tax. And so now there's a $100+ tax or $200 tax on electric cars every year. There are a lot of people who aren't paying for this tax because of the way our tax structure was structured, because we had a sales tax and an excise tax on gasoline. So we fixed that. So it was trial and error. It took us years before we figured out the right formula of how do we get people who don't want to vote for a tax increase to vote for a tax increase. And it was probably 5 years of failure before we had the year of success.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
I appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
It's right there.
Good afternoon. The next presenter will be virtual. It's from Denton, US fellow.
That's a good question. What is it?
We have experience with what you all want.
It's just an interesting question, because they're $5, then we have 12, and then you know, we'll find it. Yeah. Okay, I got it all.
The multi-speaker.
Then. Yes, I'm sure it's teacher, yes. Yeah. Part of it is 5, you have no person. Yes.
Mr. Samuel?
Mr. Samuel, can you hear us?
Yes, my colleague is still waiting to be led in, Val Sabak.
Okay.
Keep going.
And
Yes, ma'am.
and we can get started with
Yes.
Mr.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning, Mr. Owens.
Oh, Lance, yes, sir.
You can get started. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. So, before I could see the whole room, now it's just black. I don't know if that's intentional or not.
We can see you.
No, the video, look, the video's got the red line across.
Yeah, he should be able to see us.
I did when it started, but not now.
Okay.
Oh, we've got a video off. Yeah, the bottom side.
Okay, at the bottom,
At the
right
bottom.
there.
Oop, there it is.
Okay.
Well, now I see one person, almost.
Sam, we're gonna try to, get it done,
Okay.
while you're doing your presentation.
Yeah, Sam, we can see you and your colleague as well. If you don't mind starting, and then we'll
Okay,
keep working on the video.
okay, it worked well before. So it's a pleasure to be with you all. As you can tell, my colleague Val Sabak is also on this call. We are about a 10 to 12 person public policy practice in our Atlanta office as compared to about 20 additional colleagues in the DC office. And we represent several local governments. We represent Cobb, Gwinnett. I represent the Atlanta Regional Commission for some matters. We represent DeKalb County for some matters. We represent the Georgia Airport Association. So that, of course, includes the Savannah Airport. So our practice is pretty solid with regard to local representation. My background is for many, many years, local government. I was the district commissioner and chair of Cobb County for about 12 years. It was at that time I made one of my best employment decisions, which would be the woman in the room that you know as Faye DeMassimo. And after that, I ran and was successful in becoming the state's attorney. So I was the state attorney general. And following that, I did some time with Kennesaw State University, and then went to, once again, practice law as I did for the first part of my career. Val, why don't you provide a short description of your background?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Val Sabag. I started with Denton's a few months ago. Previously, I have been lobbying with McGuire Woods Consulting for about 4.5 years. Prior to that, I served as the executive director of the Georgia House Democratic Caucus. And prior to that, I was the executive assistant to the Democratic leader in the House. This upcoming session will be my 15th session. So I'm happy to be here with you all.
And as you gathered by that, my background is more R, Val's is more D. Everything we do is bipartisan. We don't believe in being heavy in one party or the other party. It's important if you want to get stuff done at the state or generally federal levels to have folks from both parties. So that is very intentional on our part. I explained earlier a bunch of our clients in the public space. We also represent numerous public agencies in the national sense, to include some other airports, some other transit systems, very familiar with the subject matter. So as far as the presentation, I really didn't want to talk, and I really didn't want Val to talk for 30 minutes talking about us. One of the things in your RFP was frankly little information as to what you would want the team you select to do for you locally. It was pretty clear what you would want on the federal side, but not on the state side. So for instance, I don't know if the goal is to try and get some state grants. I don't know if the goal is to get grants and opportunities from GDOT. So I'm a little unclear as to what you want the state team to do for you, and that would be really, really helpful to hear from y'all.
Sit out Vice Chair, can you take over that referee and start asking questions?
Sure. I will not, anyone who wants to respond.
Hey, Sam, it's Bert Ramley. Good to see you.
Hey, Bert.
I would say that there's a couple things. I mean, obviously, sort of the general, just watching the bills as they relate to the overall transit environment in the state, and obviously we could provide perspective on how overall either funding or operational or regulation or whatever bills that are coming forward that deal that impacts the statewide transit environment, how that impacts us, and what we would so we can work with you on those things. We did get left out of the SPLOST vote that we just passed. We did not receive any capital funding in that in the SPLOST program, and so certainly access to identification of help with making an argument for potential grants is something critically important to us and will be for the next couple of years. We typically use those SPLOST dollars for bus replacement, fixed route, station, bus stops. All those hard costs that come in, and we typically have relied on SPLOST funding for that, which we we're not included this year. So I think general transit things that are going on in the world, but then very specific opportunities that we could tap into here in Fort Cat that would help us given the current status of where we're at in our funding cycle.
Thank you. And it would be fair to say that I've been monitoring some of the news and some of the discussions concerning the Chatham County Chair and folks at the city. So I've been monitoring that during this process. So Bert, that was very helpful. What we generally do.
And Sam, I think I'm going to add something real quick too.
No, that's okay, Sam, go ahead and finish answering what Bert said, and then I got a question and then a couple of comments in response to your question.
Okay.
But finish answering Bert first.
Sam, did you say?
No, it was a little muffled, to be honest.
Okay. You just said to go ahead and finish with your thought.
Okay. So what we do with all our clients, clearly we have software, we go to all the pertinent hearings. Frankly, we're already at the transportation hearings due to our representation of Georgia Airport Association. We're already working with GDOT due to the various county governments we represent, as well as, once again, the Georgia Airport Association. We generally like to do weekly reports to our members covering what bills would be of interest. If there are bills you're aware of, bills from last year, bills that you are particularly interested in, we make sure those are on a weekly email. As you know, the beginning of the session, I'm not really expecting a lot to occur next week. The second week is budget. It's frankly really late. I mean, the governor's already announced his budget. We know a couple of things in it already, but clearly we'd be working with your delegation. I probably am friends with 80% of your House and Senate delegation. I've known Edna since she was mayor of Savannah and worked with her quite closely then. I've known Ron forever. I've known Lester and Ben forever. And in the last couple of years, I've gotten to know Jesse and Derek. So I think as we look at the members of the Chatham delegation, I don't think there's any, and of course I've known Bill Hitchens has a little piece. There are no members of your delegation I don't personally know. Some I know better than others, but I know all of them. We're also not adverse, and I'm certainly not adverse to traveling to Savannah to be with you at times in person. When Victor reached out to us, this is a tricky week to go to Savannah. Yesterday, today, that's when all the bigwigs are raising their money. So last night, for instance, I was at a reception dinner with House Majority Leader Chuck Efstration. Earlier today, I was meeting with House Speaker Pro Tem Jan Jones. So the ability to drive 4.5 hours and drive back literally just didn't work this week with everything going on before the session starts. As a general statement, there's plenty of restaurants I really like in Savannah that I'm more than happy to go to. And as Faye and Bert know, among others, I'm more than happy for Steve Green to treat me at those restaurants. Also at those times, I've known Steve for forever, along with, of course, Barbara Lynn. So from your perspective, I'm not with you today. Val is not with you today, but we would have no trouble throughout the year scheduling personal visits with you to get to know y'all more individually than was going to occur candidly the week before the session starts. So to give you an example, the second week, which is budget, that would actually be a really easy week for me to go to Savannah, because that's pretty much an off week for hearings, that type of thing. But as a general statement, what I'd like to stress to y'all is simply our knowledge of local government, our knowledge of transit. When I chaired Cobb County, we had a pretty robust bus service. So I was used to dealing with CERTA, Greta. The ATL didn't exist at that time. Certainly used to dealing with GDOT. So these are all folks that I personally know. So it's not, let's walk in the room and introduce myself. I know them. Val, I'll tell you quite frankly, has great rapport with the D members of the delegation and the D leadership. And I love to have her help me there, because they're even better friends of Val's than they are mine naturally. But we like to do everything jointly, everything together. We'd want to hear from you what request you'd be interested in from GDOT, what potential request you think the county delegation would be happy to see about getting put into the budget. There are certain members of House Transportation that are very helpful in that regard. Blake Tillery, while not exactly in Chatham, does really good at putting some projects in the state budget. And, of course, as you know, he chairs APROPS on the Senate side. So we like to go up to the Senate leadership to get their help. And frankly, a lot of those folks are more than happy to assist non-Atlanta, because they feel they hear too much with requests from the metro area. So that's, of course, a benefit for you in that regard. Val, what did I miss that you think we should add?
Sam, if you've got a minute, could I interject really quick and ask you a question or two? First one is, in answer to the question that you sort of asked of us, I think there's a couple of things. One, I think we want to make sure that we're leveraging the activities and resources of Georgia Transit Association as our statewide professional organization. There's always a legislative agenda that group develops, and there's also legislative activities that they participate in and sponsor, that I think we always want to make sure that we're active in and aligned with and contributing to in a very proactive way. I think the other thing, and I think this goes to what Bert mentioned in his question, is that we think that there could be opportunities in the future to model some funding opportunities as Athens did around a T-SPLOST that engaged funding not only for capital but for operating costs for a transit system. And that might become a part of our future funding streams, and in a way that really begins to reshape our overall financial portfolio, but also the kinds of opportunities that we might explore in the future with regard to a more regional approach to transit. So I think that those are a couple of things that are out there that may play certainly either directly or indirectly in the legislative space. That would be, something that would be of interest in this, under this, whoever is going to be working with us in this advocacy space. The last thing I wanted to ask, the question I had though, is you had referenced a couple of times that you've worked with other transit systems. If you could talk to us, I know about Cobb for sure, but talk a little bit about the transit systems that you've worked with and a little bit about the kinds of things you've done for them. Thank you.
So we're currently assisting Gwinnett, so we're working with Gwinnett with their system. The federal part of our presentation talked about some national clients we have in the transit space. that are not in Georgia, but that we all sort of help because it's helpful to know how local governments work, so you can assist the folks in DC, even with those clients in California, et cetera. With regard to the Transportation Alliance, Joseph previously, as Faye probably recalls, was at the Council for Quality Growth. So I've known Joseph for years. I've known Michael Paris, who's the head of the Council for Quality Growth, forever. When I first ran for commissioner, he and his son were putting yard signs out for me. Actually, not yard signs, the big signs out for me. Joseph is a great guy. Will do a really good job. I think he's been in that position a year, but he will certainly grow in that position and do well. Those are meetings we're already at. They, candidly, once again, due to GAA. So by definition, we attend those meetings already.
Thank you.
And I think it's sort of like the analogy would be you have a restaurant in one part of your town and all of a sudden there's 2 more applications for 2 new restaurants. And someone's going to say, oh no, you're adding restaurants there. They're going to lose business. Well, actually what happens is the restaurants do better because there's choice. So from our perspective, we're already engaged with those associations. We already know the leadership of those associations. We're already attending the meetings of those associations. Similarly, we're also, I'm on the board of the Georgia Chamber. So we're at all those meetings that deal more with transportation and transit. So we're at the table now, just not with CAT at that point, but we're already following it. The real issue is, I think, what Bert was referencing, which is a challenge that you're not in the SPLOST and trying to do something creative, such as you just referenced with Athens, where it could help you with operating and capital. And I think that I'd certainly want to know more than just the couple articles I've read in the paper about what accounts for you not getting funding in the SPLOST. I am familiar with the legislation that changed the composition of the board and some of the discussions in that regard. And it may be that in the short term, GDOT is a much better opportunity for you. I know from past discussions you've gotten money from GDOT already. And I think the GDOT commissioner, without hurting anyone's feelings, is probably the best GDOT commissioner we've had in many decades. And his senior staff are just amazing. So I think that as a state, we're really blessed with his leadership. And we're regularly at his office making requests and working with him. And I'm not quite sure how he does it, but he does it and he does it very, very well. And I think part of it is not only me going to Savannah, and the reason I say me is candidly, Val's going to have her second child in April, so it's not her going to Savannah in the short term. Afterwards, I'm more than happy for her to come with to Savannah. But also having you come to Atlanta, other than simply when it's Savannah Chatham Day at the legislature, where we schedule meetings specifically with the number 1 and 2 at GDOT, where we schedule meetings with Joseph Santoro, where we schedule meetings with House and Senate transportation chairs, because I think they need to see you in person to give us the best odds of success. Val, I want to give you another opportunity.
No, I think you covered everything. I mean, I think part of this year too is something that we're going to be in, that I think Denton's team watches closely, is that the upcoming 2026 elections are going to be a major shakeup for the General Assembly. And I think that we keep a pretty good eye on what's happening and how that affects policy moving through the process.
Sure, you probably just went on video to show your Georgia paraphernalia.
I've been on video the whole time, I promise. But
Yeah,
yes,
we
I
saw
have
that
been
pretty
here
early
for
on.
that one, so.
Nice framing of your backdrop there. Extra points.
Thank you, Sam. Any questions for Sam? We already asked. Anything else for us, Sam?
I think that, with the session starting next week, let's be honest and say we're a little bit behind the 8 ball. Requests for budget, I would have liked to have done 2 months ago. But having said that, Ron has a lot of influence at the Capitol. Ben has a lot of influence at the Capitol, but as we're speaking today, I don't know how many members of the delegation are supportive, how many of them really want to go out of their way to help you. And that's sort of the inner works we would need to know. I think Derek is a real up and comer in the state Senate and very sharp. Lester's, very well liked in the state Senate. So you've got some good leadership. Jesse's moving on up, but we don't have that kitchen table knowledge of your rapport with your delegation. And I think those discussions are really important to let us best help you.
Yeah, so that's a great point. We were able to meet with the delegation in December. The entire delegation, our staff was able to go and talk about our priorities with them. So they're up to speed, but to your point, a lot of people do that. A lot of people are in front of them. So continually touching back and making sure that they know where we're at and what we need. So I'm going to be a big part of this for sure.
And if we're fortunate enough to assist you, clearly that's the type of documentation we'd want to really get from you.
That's great.
Okay, if there's nothing else, Ms. Cutter, do you have any questions, anything? No. Thanks. I just want to make sure. I got to hear from you too. Thank you, Sam. Thank you guys for presenting. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great rest of the week.
Great
You
to see
do the
y'all.
same.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
Bye-bye.
You guys can pick up some minutes. The next group is already outside sitting. Wow.
Well, catch it up. Bless you. Training, what, you already tell. You can already tell, so you made it nice one. You know. Actually, it actually makes sense, maybe the first thing. Maybe then for sure we'll. Because we need. Actually. That's right, sure. But it's a big theory in person. Then you hear.
Georgia Public Affairs with us today.
Welcome.
Thank you. Welcome, you're awesome.
Think we got some super.
Yeah, it looks good on you. Looks good on you. John Clay.
Hey,
Nice to see y'all, certainly.
Hey, how y'all? How you doing? Good, good to see you. Yeah, come on. He's. Hey, it was nice. You got a.
Sounds good.
And I'm gonna ask all y'all to get up there some point here, so.
They want to add this.
So. From here. If you can, that's fine.
Thank you. Yeah, we got it. Floor is yours.
All right, well, we're happy to be here. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is John Clayton. I'm here on behalf of Georgia Public Affairs. What I'd like to do in a second is let each of us introduce ourselves. We really appreciate the time. If we can just go ahead and do that now, we'll get through that, and then I'll kind of give a little bit of a presentation from there. So why don't you start off?
No, we do have a member. Okay, you go. We have a member online, so they need to speak to the line.
Okay,
Just like you did.
certainly.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm Lauren Paramore. I work with Georgia Public Affairs. I have been a part of the team for 4 years now. And we specialize in state and local government. I'm obviously not as old as John here. We're just kidding. A little bit newer to the team, but just kind of try to bring fresh ideas into the group and just bring a little bit different things to the table.
You get points for insulting John.
I'm the whipping post.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Rylan Needham Clendon. I've been working with Georgia Public Affairs probably about 7 years now. I retired from public transit and have been engaged in public transit most of my professional life. In Washington, D.C., with both the district and the authority, and also here in Atlanta, with MARTA, and have had, like I said, over 50 years. I was also a member of the transit board. So I have been on all sides of the table in regards to transit policy, staff, and, just making recommendations. Pleasure to be with you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Terry Coleman. Served in the legislature for a long time and served in the Department of Ag for a few years, and have been together with this group for a few years. John used to work with me when I was chairman of appropriations and speaker. He went on to bigger and better things, more rewarding financially things, but I'm glad to be here. We're looking forward to maybe competing. We're interested in Savannah. Had a place on Tybee for several years until the payments caught up with me. I had to move on back to home. We're glad to be here. Feel like we're part of Chatham County. What'd you say?
I thought it was Orange Crush that got you.
Thank you very much for letting us be here. Bert, is this your non-paying job?
This is one of.
All right.
Good.
Well, thank you. Y'all are very humble. I'll tell you, Ryland, one thing I don't think she mentions is she was the first female chairman of the MARTA board, which I thought was a very big deal in that respect. And Speaker Coleman, I don't know if y'all follow politics that well, but he was the last Democratic Speaker of the House, and he's in the last 20 years, there's probably been 5 speakers.
Yeah.
If you say last 60 years, there's probably been 5 too, if you consider how long Murphy was there. But I'm John Clayton. I started Georgia Public Affairs in 2011. I've been doing mainly state local government affairs. Really don't do much in DC. We kind of keep it here. We feel like we've got a great team. We cover the Democrat, we cover Republicans. We think we have a great relationship with the current leadership that's in power. When we also deal with a lot of public entities, which I think is kind of an anomaly, but it's a good thing. To me, the biggest asset you've got to realize is when you're dealing with a public entity, it's communication. That's something we pride ourselves by. We like to make sure that there's either a regular cadence that we're on when we meet with a public client, or there's someone that we go to with every piece of information, they disseminate that. So to us, that's very important. Interestingly enough, when we went through the proposal, y'all didn't say much about what y'all were looking for. in a lobbyist or what issues y'all were looking for. We did some, www.research on that, kind of read some articles. We have some sense of that. We would like to know more, but at this point, if y'all have any questions for us, please let us know.
And Johnny, your point, we've had that question a couple times already, so I'll jump in on that. So I think there's two kind of main things that we're looking for. And one is the general transit environment. If there are bills, if there's funding, that affects the transit community as a whole, statewide. Of course, we want to give our input into that process and see how those things affect us. If there's any regulations or bills or whatever it might be, you want to be part of that conversation. Of course, obviously, Florida, we know is the largest system in the state, and they dominate those conversations, but we'd love to, as we grow and as our region grows, we'd love to be more a part of those conversations. I think it's one. And then secondly, we did not receive any funding in our SPLOST program that we just passed in November. And that's funding that we have relied on for capital, for bus replacement, for other vehicle replacement, bus stops, all those capital project needs. So we are looking for some creativity, some help in terms of how do we either locally or both locally, but also with our state partner, how do we fill the void there and make sure our fleet is upgraded up to speed, doesn't deteriorate to a point where they can't, become more expensive to operate, that kind of thing. So we are looking for those sort of funding opportunities as well. So I think that, us being part of the overall transit conversation, but then very specifically for this year, what things aren't we thinking about? What things don't we have available to us or haven't had available? Obviously, when Faye was here, we're successful with some state programs. So just figuring those things out, talking to our friends at GDOT, talking to our friends at Greta and Serta, thinking through what opportunities are out there, because this is a 6-year SPLOST program that we're not, eligible for anymore. So we need to be creative about how we backfill.
They could piggyback on Kurt's comments too. We're seeming to do this now in every year. Purposes part of it, not something. So, is that, one, in terms of that statewide, the Georgia Transit Association has always represented the industry. And we want to be sure that, as part of being a part of that overall conversation, that we're understanding things that are a statewide impact that they might bring forward or interact with, and we're participating in that. But then to the second point Bert made, and I think this is obviously the most critical one for us, because we were not included in the most recent SPLOST. One of the things that we were reflecting on even before that was the success that Athens has had with their T-SPLOST and in creating operations funding, because it fit the definition of a transportation purpose, which is what was in that bill. So the notion that maybe that's part of, because we have a very unique environment down here. We're the only transit system in the state that has a transit tax that is levied and collected. The boundary for the transit tax is countywide. However, it is only collected in areas that through referendum vote to do so. And so in that case, it's the full city of Savannah, a couple of areas of unincorporated Chatham County, and a portion of Garden City. So it's still kind of a, more isolated and patchwork kind of environment for that particular funding source. And then it's a millage that's levied versus a sales tax based program. So the notion of what Athens has done and the success that they've had with it and the kind of production of revenue that it's provided is something that's really interesting to us. Is that something we can learn from, we can leverage, we can shape down here, maybe as potential replacement funding source, or even just as an augmentation. But again, particularly to make up both on the capital match side, which our former SPLOST really was our primary source for, and then this broader notion. Every transit system I know is trying to figure out how to supplement, complement their operations funding streams. And so that would be a whole new source for us and could give us a way potentially for more millage-based products.
So, could I ask a few questions? If we are able to do this, we really need an interaction update often and in depth from time to time, or we can't, you can't just walk in the doctor's office and say, I just don't feel good, we gotta have somebody we're gonna deal with and talk about where you are and where you're going and where you want to go. And the tax issue is extremely important. I was chairman of Ways and Means for 2 years in the House. And you just never, you never, it's an unending thing, because every time you think you got it solved, then somebody comes along and changes it. Did the commission make the decision about the SPLOST not being included in the SPLOST? Yeah. Yeah. Did they give y'all a reason, or did they just make that arbitrary decision, or?
That the county is still is represented on the board, they just haven't appointed their members as yet.
Okay.
But it was that reconstitution action that created some concern on their part, and the way that they reacted to that concern was, in part, was through the elimination.
Just historically, a few things I'll tell you about. I was on the port subcommittee the whole time I was in the legislature, so I've seen this thing grow from where it was to now through at least 4 port directors over the years, and the purchase of the turn basin, everything, and also the expansion. When Eric Johnson and I talked about the convention center across the thing, I said, Eric, you're not asking for enough money because of what we did in Atlanta for the World Congress Center and others. So fortunately, they went back to the drawing board, asked for more, and now you're doubling the size of those kind of things. Also, the Roundhouse crowd, I was in the chairman of appropriations when we got the money to do we bought the cars from Australia to run the little shuttle downtown. I sure hate what happened to it. I hate it, but it was a nice little River Street Rambler was one of my projects, and I guess it's defunct now for all practical purposes. Anyway, so once you know the history, including the funding, startup funding, some of the startup funding for the ferries, because if you didn't have that, you wouldn't have the convention center and the hotel and the new hotel coming in. So anyway, it's going to be very important if we're able to do this, that whoever y'all determine is going to be our primary and secondary contact, that we're able to talk often and talk about where you go, where you are and where you're going. And I want to find, are we looking at expanding service? Y'all, this is a growing region of the state. And if you don't have some transit outside Chatham, and it's almost like you're walling off Chatham County for both retail, for work, for professional connections, everything. I mean, you got everything going. You got the port, you got 2 major hospitals, you got SCAD, you got the college, you got a technical college here. And there's no reason you can't just continue to blow it out as far as growth, but you need that transportation. Now, I didn't know if that's part of your thinking or not.
The short answer is yes, and so not much time away from what the other stuff we're here to talk about today. I think
I know, I'm sorry to.
Go and review the Chatham area master transit plan. It was a year-long effort, driven by community input, but really strongly looking at all those regional connections, Hyundai, the growth in Amazon, the growth in the port, the growth in Gulfstream, and how all of those things, including just the fundamental growth in demand and need from our residents and businesses here in Chatham County, can be served by transit both now and into the future. I would strongly encourage you to go read that, and that'll be the bigger answer to your question.
Thank you.
But the limiting factor of that regional plan obviously is getting the funding right.
Right.
And so I think there's
The boundary
some
issue-
strategic discussions that we've got to have as a board, but also staff. I mean, there's, all that's going to have to come out, for the wash.
Aside from funding, or the boundary issue is an issue with our neighbors.
Boundaries are not legally an issue.
No, I mean,
but
I guess.
we'd have to certainly, and GDOT's in the middle of there's a transit study right now for our region as well.
Okay.
So
That'll be available as it comes along.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me speak to the budget this year. We're kind of in a unique situation. Governor Kemp has amassed a war chest in the reserves, and I think you're going to see a lot of it come out this year in the amended budget. I mean, that's kind of been the strategy of most governors, that they put any capital or any large projects in the amended because it kind of gets passed fairly quickly. This year we're going to have a quick session, but there's going to be a lot of money out there. And a lot of it's, obviously, we'll see it, I believe, the 15th, January 15th will be the state of the state. That'll come out then. You'll see the governor's priorities, but this is the eighth session of the Governor Kemp's term. And if they're going to change a budget, it's going to be this one. And that, I mean that to say, if you're not in the governor's recommendation, you're not out. Typically in a year, you're kind of behind the 8 ball if you're not in the governor's budget. But this is going to be a different session.
Any other questions?
I would just like to make a comment related to the transit master plan and how effective it was, because it was all inclusive. And it addresses the issue of the need for Chatham area transit to expand. This is a regional authority. And we have to begin to think about outside of Savannah, Chatham County, and bringing resources in so that we can expand to serve the surrounding areas. The master plan has all of those features as a part. The collaborative approach, really, we had no idea that we would lose SPLOST funding. And some of the requests for SPLOST aid really dealt with regional expansion. So the plan is an excellent guide, not only for Savannah, Chatham County, but also for surrounding areas as well.
Yeah, like I think the fact that the state mentioned, a lot of our funding sources comes from village that is that county taxpayers pay, City of Savannah, Garden City. I think this move to a T-SPLOST where it's a sales tax where regional people are paying that, I think makes a lot more, this particular for me, but we got as a board, as a team, with our vendors, and our contractors, we got to figure out a strategy about how to get there, and we had a T-SPLOST in 2022 that failed. And so we learned from that, as well. And so anyway, there's a lot to think about. And so we're not gonna solve it all, next week, obviously. So we're looking for a strategic partner that can help us think through ideas, think about where the pots are, where the most effective and efficient ways to raise money and spend it. The team, you're asking about, we as a board, we really need to lean on the staff to be your primary contact. But this board is made up of community leaders from Wentworth, from Garden City, from City of Savannah, business community. So we'll all be helpful, but we need to obviously make sure the staff is your primary go-to connection point, and then we'll all support them and do what we can.
And you all have the support of the community in all of these areas?
So, and I tell you, the other thing that we have is we have some really good strategic partners. I think the master plan, as Stephanie just mentioned, was broad consensus of the community about the direction we're heading and what kinds of services people wanted to see and how they want to make connections and so forth. But I think in addition to that, one of the things that CAT has done over the last several years is that have built an incredibly strong partnership with GDOT. So GDOT is a good, strong partner and well thought of, where CAT is well thought of in those spaces. And I think that our legislative delegation has demonstrated a lot of support for transit and multimodal transportation considerations. Understanding, to your point, I think the amount of just the magnitude of the growth here, and so forth. As a matter of fact, we just came from an event that Burke hosted earlier this morning about the economic outlook. And it was remarkable to look at the amount of manufacturing jobs. We lead the state right here in this space in terms of manufacturing job production. I think they lead the country in some respects, but it's so that the notion of what an economic generator we are captures attention, and all of those facilities that you mentioned, key hospitals, Gulfstreams, and even things like Amazon and so forth. We're and then of course everybody's coming. So
Is light rail in your long range concept in any way?
not light rail, but some BRT, but mostly microtransit. Microtransit is something that's really captured folks' attention in terms of the way that it can help meet a more modern demand. because the demand for transit, really the character of it really changed a lot after COVID, although I think it was already on that movement. And then and I know you would have this as well, that just changed a lot, particularly after COVID, and the notion that your transit can operate almost more with an Uber Lyft kind of you get to go where you want to go, when you want to go there. It's not, you're not having to wait any particular place. You're not necessarily a long haul trip and those kinds of things. So the development of microtransit was more of a centerpiece.
It's like more on demand transit.
Love to give you guys a chance to highlight any successes that you've had that you feel like are relevant that the, board could hear from. I mean,
Sure,
to me to list, I know that maybe.
No, I thought one that I think we're very proud of. We represented Clayton County in the last expansion of MARTA. I think that was done probably 8 or 9 years ago. We passed the legislation and allowing them to do that. We were hired by them to do that. We didn't work the referendum, all that as far as that goes, but we did fulfill that requirement for them. And I'm trying to think, since then, we now represent Fulton County, which I know, and I don't think we've really, MARTA and Fulton County, since it's kind of a multi-county jurisdiction, it's kind of two separate entities on that. So we really don't work as much hand in hand with them.
MARTA dominates that. And because of where they are, they dominate that the conversation up there. But yeah, Fulton County, we've helped them as far as just generally support their BRT program on the north end of 400. And then they're looking at BRT on the south end down, what's the highway down there? Runs down to South Fulton.
Oh, 85?
No, the state road down there. You know what? What?
Old National.
Old National Highway. They're looking at, BRT down there, but they haven't done it yet. Thank you.
Yes.
So they haven't done a lot on it, but yeah, they're moving pretty fast on the north side on the 400 thing. But anyway, we kind of like the idea of the challenge and like the idea of trying to help make things happen. And so we're interested.
Yeah, when you look at the budget, I think that's a real item that we've kind of shown out at. We do a lot of budget work for a lot of other clients. It's not just public entities, but private entities as well. We're gonna have a busy year this year with that. And we're excited about that because we've been in situations, especially when you were a speaker, when you were in the House, that we were declining on revenue. So this year to see that we have not only a surplus, but we have a piggy bank that the governor set aside for big projects is very.
So you feel like one time funding is gonna be an opportunity?
Capital one time.
Funding.
Well, let me say this, it's late to get in the game,
Sure.
but yeah, I wouldn't think it's out of the question. But I know the speaker, we were at a function last night in Atlanta and Speaker Burns said he was gonna work to pry some of that money loose. Governor's got about 16 billion in the rainy day fund and they're all drooling over it. So how do we get along with you? How does this board get along with your local delegation? Good?
Yeah, I mean, they created this board.
Yeah.
By legislation last year. So, I think we're, obviously there's a lot of competing priorities down here. When
Okay.
everyone speak for them. But
That's good.
We're,
A good question.
well, sure.
Not necessarily a part of.
He's interested in this area of the state as is from the dental school. As you know, that was his issue. And he's working on an optometry school now, big time. Both, y'all aren't in, Bert, you're probably more deeper into it than others, but it works hand in hand, the transit is part, if you don't have it, I call them the shuns, education, transportation, recreation. If you don't have at least those three things, then you're just out of luck as far as being a growing, productive area. And healthcare. I meant to add that, but healthcare is such a big deal now for people who want to come into Savannah. What'd you say, Bert? Yeah. So when people coming in for treatment, here, you got Memorial, which is one of the bigger hospitals for referral hospitals in the whole state and on the coast. And then Candler St. Joe is starting a residency program, which is going to add a lot to the whole healthcare system here in Savannah. And people come for healthcare. They come for healthcare. They come and they shop. You know, they buy prescriptions. They do, you know, and they come back. And so a lot of those people rely on public transportation.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to tell people the most biggest undeveloped piece of property on the East Coast was our little island right across the river.
Oh, well, it's not.
I know. But 10, 15 years ago, it was a place anyway, but it's got to have transportation too, which it does. Got to have more transportation. So, yeah, well, let us know if we can.
I'll share one big story with you. I came in last night and stayed, and I didn't know, I had never seen the boats, the ferries that you had. And you know, there's some interesting people that Savannah that you've been into. And so I was sitting there, and Cat showed us that Cat was running. They said, yeah, we call him the Paul Revere of transportation. I said, what do you mean? He said, one if by land, two if by water.
Yeah, one of the, I guess the only statewide, only transit system in the state that has
That has ferries.
ferry service.
Yeah.
It's a little bit uniquely positioned there, and so.
The only other operational ferries that enter Stackpole Island, and those are DNRs. We're the and one of the very few transit systems in the country, probably half a dozen, maybe, or up to a dozen, that have ferries as part of their portfolio. So.
That's cool.
I don't have to tell you, I mean, you all are here in the middle of it, but you know, Hyundai's reaching out. They're looking at everything, even into Macon, as far as bringing workers down here. And the other developments you've had come in since that time, especially the contract manufacturers and others, if you've got to do something, it's got to be comprehensive.
Anybody else have anything to say?
No, I think this discussion has been really good. I think the board has done an excellent job of pointing out the priorities, and with the transit master plan, that's our guide. And that's what we'll be working towards implementing it. So this is funding to support that.
Is it available now?
Yes, we
Okay.
have an executive summary. It's posted on our website.
Good.
One thing we tell you guys as you leave, you know, catch a cat.
Well, it's so close to session, I think it's appropriate to say this. We would appreciate your favorable consideration. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank y'all for coming down really further.
Thank you.
Right.
Website.
Yes. That's what you do.
Oh, Bert, you've got to tell me there's still.
Randy there. Yeah, I was afraid to see. I have a kid sitting in the pool with stolen water.
Yeah. So it was like.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm surrounded now.
Do what?
Surrounded now.
Save his breath.
Ready for it, that's right.
I saw a different version of this really pretty, but I thought it was more fun than that really nice one. So
Don't forget George Lincoln did.
we do, we have to, you're.
Oh, I see.
What's that?
So.
So the Shirley was in Georgia, and there for times as well. That's the sound.
Would you like this?
Good afternoon. I have the from the Southern Group, Mr. Joe Wiggins, and then again.
Very good.
I guess. No, I don't. Well,
Good to see. Hey, thanks.
Yes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joel Wiggins. I'm the managing partner of the Southern Group of Georgia. And I have with me Dante Handel, our newest hire. If you recognize us, it's because I came from the Georgia Municipal Association and Dante came from the Association of County Commissioners of Georgia. We pride ourselves in being one of the firms here in Georgia that focuses strongly on local governments, communities, and the things that make communities competitive in this state. Clearly, you know this because this is what you do. You have a vested interest in providing a transit alternative for your community to keep your community both economically competitive and healthy. This is something I think that with our background in local government, we understand the planning components, we understand the things you do at the operational level. And we try to do our best to make that translate to lawmakers in Georgia who may come from communities that don't have a transit option, who may not understand transit, who may need some education, some assistance to get to that point. So that's one of the things that we think gives us an advantage from our local experience, and that's really why Dante and I are here today to answer your questions of how we've seen at the Capitol ways to educate lawmakers to advance transit and other economic communities. Dante, why don't you?
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. So as you'll mention, my name is Dante Handel. Prior to joining the Southern Group, I spent the last 3 or 4 years working for ACCG, Association of County Commissioners, where I got to develop strong relationships with county officials throughout the state while continuing to work with our partners at the state legislature. Prior to that, I spent 4 years on the Department of Revenue's Legislative Affairs team, and I guess I'm coming up on my 10th legislative session starting next Monday. But very happy to be here with y'all and glad to answer any questions.
Yeah, so I mean, one of the questions that we've gotten from a couple of the proposers is sort of what we're looking for. So I think maybe we'll jump into that. It's probably a good start off point. What I've said to everybody is kind of two things we're looking for. One is anything that affects the overall transit environment in the state. We want to make sure we're a part of that conversation. We know that MARTA is the largest agency in the state, but we have some unique things here. We have ferry service here. We're the only transit agency that has have those ferries, and anything, any bills, any rules and regs, any funding that's going to affect sort of transit as a whole. We just want to make sure that we're considered in that conversation. You know, we're part of that along with our other agencies around the state. And the second piece is we're left out of our SPLOST program that we just approved in November. Voters did, and so that capital funding that we typically rely on in the SPLOST program for bus replacement, for bus stops, for maintenance facility, whatever the things that go into the capital needs, we're going to have to be creative. We got to start thinking through how we make sure our fleet doesn't depreciate, that we're replacing those on a cycle, and where does that come from? And so we've got some ideas, we've got some things we're kicking around and thinking about, and so having that assistance from the eyes and ears that are up there looking for those opportunities, particularly this year, given last year of an administration, healthy surplus, what options are out there. Our delegation fully, staff met with them, has met with all of them. They're very supportive. We don't think we'll have any trouble in terms of being a big priority for them. But just making sure that we're, there's somebody looking out, as our delegation will as well, but we're considered as some of those discussions. I think it's really the two areas I'd see that we need the sort of most immediate help in 26. And then long term, we've got to make some decisions locally about how we want to fund our transit system, what it's going to look like, what those services look like. We're just less than a year in as a board and figuring these things out, and we'll have to do that with our city and our county and our other cities as well.
Well, thank you, Bert. I know from your experience at the Capitol, you know exactly how these processes work, and we are very experienced in the monitoring aspect, but also the appropriations aspect, which is something you're very familiar with. one of the things I did want to mention is I have the experience working for Gwinnett County Board of Commissioners while they were rolling out Ride Gwinnett, while we've been working on bus rapid lanes. So, I mean, MARTA obviously takes up a lot of oxygen in the transportation discussions, but there are other efforts. And I think we've had experience on the ground floor of how to bootstrap those efforts and how to live in a world in a ATL Transit Link, MARTA, metro dominated world and carve out other solutions. So I think that's something that we understand and we're big excited about the opportunity. Through those experiences, built good relationships with Janine Miller, with Russell McMurray, with Meg, with the folks that we would need to be lockstep with in these types of conversations. So, I mean, I think that what you described is something that we not only feel like we're up to the task, we've done so in a similar capacity. And as Dante has been association side, so he has the relationships throughout the state with locals who also have similar experiences. So we feel like we can make that translate to local and the state, and we're uniquely positioned to not only understand what you're going through, but also represent you under the goal.
We lost our chairman.
Yes.
State goes our vice chair.
I think Bert's already covered most of it. I think that there's a couple things. Of course, Georgia Transit Association has always been an active partner representing transit, including MARTA, but including, the full range of transit systems across the state, including rural transit systems and how those play into the overall ecosystem. Right. So, continuing to having strong presence and strong relationships there is important. And that goes back to what Bert mentioned about understanding the things that have statewide impact that we can be participating in. I think that as we're understanding it, that this particular session may represent some opportunity around one-time capital outlays. And that could be very useful, especially as replacement funding for the SPOS funding that we will be missing moving forward in this next SPOS to Chatham County, since transit wasn't included in it. And I think as a part of that, they'll look into the future, maybe not something for this session, but looking forward is if we look to the Athens model, where Athens did a T-SPOS, I think they did a fractional penny of some sort, but they dedicated it to funding the transit system, but they used the definition of transportation purpose to include operations funding too. And of course, every transit system is always looking to figure out their operations funding stream. That's the hardest one, because the feds will give you money for capital all day long, but hard to get the other, right? So the notion of looking to that model and thinking about how it converts, we're uniquely positioned in the entire state of Georgia. We're the only system in the state that has a special transit tax district that is a millage based revenue source. And so the Athens is really interesting from the perspective that and everybody in the county here doesn't participate in it. It's still a patchwork quilt of things. So the notion that you could have something that's more comprehensive and it's a sales tax based program, and you could relieve that village burden perhaps and think about some other funding streams. It's something to explore, not something, it's something for a conversation in this board. So those are things that, we hope to be able to set the table for as we're moving.
I appreciate you bringing up single county T-SPOS. That's something that I worked on when I was at GMA 2016, 17, 18 sessions, when it was first being kind of split out from the TIA rural or regional model based on your regional commission district. And then Dante, as he was also the tax lobbyist for ACCG. So he worked on the single county and also is a millage rate master. So I'll let him.
I know just enough to be dangerous. So thinking about what you mentioned, Bird, and then you mentioned, I'm sorry to catch your name.
I'm fed.
Okay, great. I get you fed. So when I was at ACCG, I was primarily doing tax work for first 3 sessions I was with them. In the last session, I did tax and transportation. And then when I'm thinking about one-time asks for transportation, that role put us and put me directly into asking for one-time funding through the LRA mechanism, which was an addition on top of the LMIG. But I was also taking lead on the single county T-SPLOST update bill that they brought during the 24 session. And then we've seen under House Bill 581, it's that big comprehensive property tax, sales tax bill, that they kind of restructured where each of the sales tax pennies comes from to make it more clear what is available to the local governments. And I think SPLOST funding, the T-SPLOST funding can be very important and definitely is a good way to go. I see where the General Assembly is pushing more and more towards trying to use sales tax to relieve some of the property tax burden, and that sounds like it aligns with what it is you suggested.
Love to give you guys a chance to talk about any successes that you've had. I don't want to steal Kelvin's question, but he loves to ask about a failure that you want to talk about, maybe what happened and even how you navigated through the tough spot. So.
Well, we have plenty of both, so we can. So I'll start with the failure, because I think a lot of times, as many of you know in here, failures lead to successes and lessons learned, like you mentioned. And as we're both been in local government, so we both are very familiar at the General Assembly of being the little brother, little sister of the state. And that's just the relationship of local government and state government. But one of the things that we have dealt with over the years is home rule authority, and where the state would like to preempt local governments from their home rule authority. Many of these, and I'll try to be focused on one when I represented Gwinnett County, was being brought by leadership. The House leadership was very interested in doing something that the client was not interested in. Which put us as lobbyists in a position squarely in the middle. And so ultimately we were unsuccessful. However, we were able to articulate our position. And the leadership, while they still were able to push through a preemption and create a new city, which the county was not interested in, they came back the next year and they conceded in another bill and were able to alleviate some of the concerns. And that's generally how we see it work at the General Assembly. It's a long game. We play the long game. You're gonna lose an inch, but you might make up a foot the next year. You might lose another inch, but it's typically something, as a firm philosophy, we focus on the long game. And so that particular instance, while it felt like it did feel like a defeat, and it was a defeat, but it ended up being a success in the future. So, and it led us to, I think, one of our biggest successes, which is, we are primarily, we represent many local governments. I represent MEAG Power, which is the wholesale power provider for the municipalities. So we have a lot of local government ties and authorities, development authorities. And we have been involved in several economic development projects over the years that have changed communities. And I think, at the end of the day, being local, and I think y'all probably, if you've gotten the flavor that we are very much a local focused, community focused firm. And that's what we really get out of, serving our clients and seeing it change there. So at the end of the day, our successes and our failures, we feel like, lead us to a point where we're serving that local community. We're in it with our clients, for better or worse. And I'm proud to say almost all of our clients are with us for the long term. We have long-term relationships. We don't do quick hitters. And all along here.
Yeah, so I really appreciate what Joel said about that, especially, thinking in terms of trying to maybe lose an inch, but you gain a foot type of mindset. So one of the things that drew me to the Southern Group is the way Joel approaches business at the Capitol. And I think it's important to think about it in terms of, you try and win every battle, but it's more important to win the war. So when you asked about successes and failures. Any failures that I've had, and I'll give you an example, there's a bill that I worked on a few years back. There was another group that was at odds with the counties, so we were fighting a little bit back and forth. And at the end of the session, the political tide shifted. The bill that I was working on wasn't gonna go anywhere. Ultimately, that other group asked for the ability to take that resolution we're working on, strip the language and put things in there. And we lost that fight, right? But it did help us refine the arguments for the next time around, helped us maintain those relationships and try to find another way to approach it. So I view those failures as an opportunity to reframe the thinking, and I think that's important. Then being involved in House Bill 581, which I mentioned earlier, that was a real heavy hitter of the bill. I spent a lot of time on, we didn't get everything that we wanted, but there are a lot of things that we didn't want that we managed to keep out. At the end of the day, there's always going to be about some sort of compromise where the goal is to get the best outcome that you can. And that's really what motivates me to try to achieve those outcomes. It's true.
Is Southern Group a two-person shop? Do you have a broader team?
No, we have five lobbyists. The two that we are proposing to serve on for you would be Dante and I because of our local government and transparency.
And y'all work interchangeably, you'll both be on every, I'm not trying to put on every.
Yes.
Any other questions? Director?
I think they've been all that.
Okay. Anything else want to add? You can close out.
One manager. So I was thinking back to one of the first comments that you made about questions that other folks had asked you on what you're looking for, but I do think that access and maintaining a seat at the table is very important. So when I taken over transportation for the 25 session, that was new to me, and I had to figure out how to get connected quickly with those folks in that transportation space. Definitely made a lot of good connections at GDOT, especially with the commissioner and with Josh Waller, who's there, the affairs director. Made good connections with the Transportation Alliance. That's currently but Joe, I'm like it's just tomorrow. Thank you. But got to work together with him a good bit, and I always thought it was important to find those allies and make sure that you're communicating. Because we can't help y'all and make sure that your voices are heard if we can't get in those rooms, get those conversations. So I think we'll be able to continue to do that.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you for your time.
Appreciate y'all being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would say maybe do the on side first child. Just agree with the. And so. Thinking of the video. And then. Did you follow that?
Yeah. This one is the last. Also, it's George's. Is that me? You have to pull it because you need to.
board members I have been through. It's from Georgia League. I have Mr. Arthur Edge, Boyd and Brad.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Except for Lee.
Listen here, back here.
We've got one member online, so
Okay.
whenever you're speaking, you have to speak in the order. Mics and one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
All right.
Ready?
We're ready to go.
Everyone is here?
Very good.
Well, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. As was said, my name is Arthur Edge. I'm the partner with Georgia Lake Public Affairs Group in Atlanta. We are very much appreciate the opportunity to come present to you today. We're very excited about the opportunity to potentially represent your interests at state capitol. We know that y'all have been interviewing several firms today, and I'm sure they're all good folks. We know most of them, if not all of them. But I'm gonna be frank with you, we feel like we are best suited to represent your interest in Atlanta and look after your interest there. And that's really based on three things: our relationships that we've built up over the years, and a number of us have been there at the Capitol for a long time. Our track record, which we'll talk a little bit about later. We've had great success over the years in passing legislation, defeating legislation if it's bad for our clients, and also getting money in the budget and those types of things. So we've had good luck there. And then the breadth, the depth, and the scope of our team. We're going to talk about that as well. As I said, we feel like we have the #1 lobbying team at state capitol. If you don't believe us, as our slide shows, there's a magazine, James Magazine, that each year conducts a survey. And they survey legislators, they survey legislators and lobbyists and folks in the executive branch as well. And we have been fortunate enough to be ranked the top lobbying firm in Georgia for 21 consecutive years. We're very, very proud of that. One thing I'll point out about our firm, and again, we'll talk about our team here in just a minute, but we're not like a law firm where you hear a presentation from a partner and then you get stuck with an associate handling your work. When you hire us, you get all of us and our other 3 partners as well. We're all on the job for you. If you've got an issue that perhaps I have the best relationship with a certain senator or representative, then I'm gonna be the one to go see them. If Boyd or Brad or other partners have that, they're gonna go in. They're gonna be well versed on your issues, and we're gonna use the team approach to accomplish what it is y'all want us to get done for you. One of the secrets of our success, we provided y'all with a client list. One of the things we're most proud of is most of our clients, a vast majority of them have been with us for years. We've got clients we've represented 25 and 30 years. And I think that speaks to the success we've had for them, the relationships we've built with them, the work we've done on their behalf, and frankly, the personal attention that we give each and every one of our clients. We're very proud of that. They seem to be very pleased with that. For instance, we've represented Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, I think, for 28 years. The Georgia Society of CPAs, probably 25 years. Warner Brothers Studios, which was formerly Turner Broadcasting. We've been representing them now about 26 years. And the list goes on, Georgia Power, Atlanta Gas Light, and so forth. But we're proud of the record we've achieved, and we're proud that it's reflected by the survey that's voted us the top lobbying firm. We can go to the next one. A little bit about our team. Trip Martin, who is our senior partner, founded Georgia Link. Prior to starting Georgia Link, Trip was the director of legislative affairs for Bell South in Washington, D.C. Trip left D.C., came back to Georgia, his home, and founded Georgia Link in 1991. Brad Bohannon, Brad's with us today. Brad has served in numerous capacities. He was chief of staff to Congressman Lynn Westmoreland in Washington, D.C. He came back to Georgia, worked for the EMCs and the Georgia Lottery Corporation. And then most recently, before he joined us a few months ago, was deputy chief of staff for Governor Brian Kemp. Elise Murray. Elise was previously with another firm, and she came to us this year. Very pleased to have her. She previously represented the EMCs as well, the Georgia Automobile Dealers Association, worked in numerous roles in Governor Deal's administration. And now, as I say, is with Georgia Link, and we're delighted to have Elise. There's a little bit about myself there. I served in the state Senate before joining Georgia Link for 10 years. My last 4 years in the Senate, I was the Republican leader of the Senate. I retired from the Senate in 1996, joined Georgia Link in 97, and have been with them ever since. Boyd Pettit, who's with us today as well. Boyd formerly served in the House. He was a Democrat in the House and served there for 10 years as well. He and I got to know each other while we were both serving. Boyd left the House in 1992, joined up with Mr. Martin at Georgia Link. I came along with them in 1997, and the three of us have been together since that time. Jay Roberts is another partner with us. Jay served in the House for, I believe, 12 years from Ocilla, Georgia. Probably the most important thing you need to know about Jay is the fact that while he was in the House, he was chair of the Transportation Committee. He was the primary author and responsible primarily for getting House Bill 170 passed, which set up the funding mechanism that's been so important to keep up with the growth in our state and to keep the transportation system in our state moving forward. Jay handled that while he was in the House. After leaving the House, he was tapped by Governor Deal to be the planning director at DOT. He served in that capacity, I believe, about 4 years, and headed up that department at DOT, and then left DOT and joined us about 6 years ago. So his contacts and influence at the Department of Transportation, frankly, are unparalleled. He is very, very tight with the folks over there, and has really helped a lot of our clients protect their interests and get things done with DOT while there. I'll briefly mention the James Magazine. I've been named the top lobbyist in the state of Georgia on several occasions for that magazine. We thought we'd throw that in. I don't want to brag, but I want to point that out.
I want to brag, we just did.
That's right.
Not bragging, it's true.
One other thing I'll mention about Mr. Pettit. Some of you may be familiar, the Georgia Chamber has what is called the Government Affairs Council. That is made up of all the lobbyists who represent business interests at state capitol. We meet once a week during the session. We have other meetings throughout the year to formulate policy and advocate for policy that is pro-business and it helps business clients and clients such as yourself. Boyd is now the chair of the Government Affairs Council, has been for last year, and has one more year to serve in that position. And I think that speaks to the respect that the other lobbyists have for Boyd in choosing him to lead the Government Affairs Council. I mentioned about Jay being the planning director. I'm going to turn it over to Boyd right now. He's going to talk a little bit about, I mentioned relationships at the outset, and he's going to talk a little bit about your delegation and relationships we have established with them and some others.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Boyd Pettit, I'm very proud to be here with you today and be part of Georgia Link. We just thought it important to talk briefly about your delegation. That's an important part of your community here. We recognize that. We believe that the collective relationships that we have, House and Senate caucuses, the Women's Caucus, Legislative Black Caucuses, sponsorships that we do, the Veterans Caucus. We're involved with all of the activities at the Capitol. We do a lot of sponsorships and maintain that. We look forward to having an opportunity, we hope, to work more closely with your legislative delegation. Just briefly, I won't go through all, but just as a little bit of background, Mr. Edge was in college with Ben Watson. They were friends in college. So they go back a long ways with their relationships. Senator Mallow, we had an opportunity to be supportive of him very early in his career when he first ran for the House, and then later is now serving in the Senate. Senator Billy Hickman, early relationships with him, and he and I go back a long ways. I won't tell you what year, but he and I were actually in Leadership Georgia together long before he came to the legislature. I was then serving in the legislature when he went through. So Ron Stevens, who's the chair of your delegation, again, we have long-standing relationships with him. He serves on the House Ways and Means Committee. He's chair of one of those subcommittees of the House Ways and Means. But most importantly, I think locally serves as the chair of your delegation, and we were just with him yesterday, but have long-standing relationships. Just briefly, let me run through, if you'll flip to the next slide. We think it's also important as we present to you to think about relationships at the state level. Governor Kemp first came to the state in 2003, so we had an opportunity to get to know him and to work with him then. Worked with him when he was in the Secretary of State's office. We had several clients that had interest at the Secretary of State's office. And again, had a great relationship and have thoroughly enjoyed the 7 years that we've worked with him while he's been governor. Lieutenant Governor Jones first came to the Senate. We had an opportunity to get to know him. Little background, again, I won't tell you what year, but when I was in the legislature, I served with his dad. His dad, Bill, was in the House when I got elected, and he and I became good friends and served throughout Bill's term, and then I continued service in the legislature for a few years after that. Just one aside, tomorrow, or next week will be the Georgia Chamber Eggs and Issues Breakfast. As Skin mentioned, I'm very active with the Georgia Chamber. I will be on stage with Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones next week. We're doing a fireside chat as part of the Eggs and Issues presentation and breakfast next week. I'm excited about that. Speaker Burns, again, we go back a long way with him, when he was not only serving in the House and chair of the committee, but as majority leader and now as speaker. Something else he and I have in common, he served on the DOT board before coming to the legislature. I served on the DOT board after leaving the legislature. So we feel like we have strong relationships, important for y'all to hear about those. And I know, again, as Mr. Edge mentioned, y'all have interviewed a number of groups, and I know you expect all of those groups to have good relationships with your delegation as well as with the state officers. We think that's important. We think, again, with our 6 partners, the diversity that we've got, diversity of contacts, we think we can put our group up against most any group with regard to contacts at Captain. Real quick, let me just touch on our experience working with and for local governments. Just for a minute, let me say, as Mr. Edge was introducing me a minute ago, my background too is as an attorney. I've served as a local government attorney for over 40 years for various local governments. Cartersville is my home, Cartersville in Bartow County. That's where I still live. And I'm very lucky to represent Bartow County, but I also represent the Development Authority in Bartow, as well as a couple of other development authorities. Had an opportunity to be very involved with local governments. We represented the city of College Park. It's kind of a success story. We were caught in the middle, or they were in the middle of a battle between the mayor and the council members. We got hired by the council to prevent some changes to their charter. And we're very successful with that. For the city of Warner Robins, we're glad to represent. Daugherty County, we represent. Clayton County, we're working with as well. We have a success story with the Chatham Hospital Authority from several years ago when they needed a change legislatively to be able to expand some of their services here in your area. And we were very fortunate to be successful with that local legislation as well. So again, we think you've got great experience working with authorities and local governments. Appreciate it. Have an opportunity. We look forward to questions, and we hopefully will leave enough time for that for you. Okay.
Just real briefly, you had asked us to provide some legislative success stories to you. One of the biggest success stories, I know how important this has been to Savannah and Chatham County. That's the film festival. All the filming that goes on down here, we were the lead firm that worked on getting that passed a few years back. We've also led the charge to amend that a couple of times as recently as last year to further incentivize and enhance the credit, try to bring business to Georgia. I mentioned earlier House Bill 170 that Jay Roberts handled, the Georgia Transportation Improvement Act. Well, got that passed, and while Jay was in the legislature, he was the sponsor, and we were one of the lobbying firms involved in that. Boyd mentioned the legislation we handled for the Chatham County Hospital Authority a few years ago to amend that trust fund so that they could provide medical services for indigent care. We got that through the legislature. we have secured funding in the budget for numerous clients. Budget work is a large part of our practice. But some clients like PACE, which is a program for at-risk young girls, the OBGYNs, Medicaid rate increases, the Hospital Association, funding for local airports, very, very broad and wide set of interests. But we're very involved with the budget process and working very carefully. Both Boyd and I served on the appropriations committees when we were in the Senate and the House. We passed the legislation for the tax credit for low-income housing here in the state of Georgia. And we've also, on behalf of clients, secured numerous contracts from state agencies for our clients to do business with the state. So that's something we've done. I hope, before I turn it over to Brad, I'll mention two other things real quick. I hope that we've demonstrated that we've got, as I mentioned at the outset, a lot of breadth. We've got a former House member, a former senator, a former member of the executive branch, two former members of the DOT board, a former planning director of the DOT board. We kind of cover the waterfront in Atlanta, we feel like, and so we're pleased with that. I know that not sure exactly how long, but I know Jack Kingston has handled y'all's work in Washington. I served in the Senate when Jack was in the House, as did Boyd. I've known Jack a long time, since our days back at Georgia, University of Georgia. Now, currently, Jack, of course, is lobbying in DC. He and I actually share a client now that I handle the work in Atlanta. He handles the work in DC, so we talk on a regular basis about that client's interests. We work together very well. We're good friends, and I'm delighted that he's representing y'all. You're in good hands with him in DC. I can certainly tell you that. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Brad just to talk a little bit about some of the day-to-day work we'll be doing on your behalf during the session and outside the session.
Well, thank you very much. Again, Brad Bohannon, I want to offer my thanks for your time as well and the opportunity to be here. Thank you very much. Certainly appreciate it. As noted, I just kind of wanted to go over some of the items that are listed in the scope of work and discuss those individually. First thing is when it comes to legislative monitoring, as mentioned before, our team of 6 is at the Capitol every day. So we are monitoring legislation, obviously legislation that is requested to be introduced, but also any other legislation that would have any impact on the authority as well. So we are tracking those every day. Those bills are being evaluated and added to a legislative tracker that you have access to, that is specific to you, password protected. Anyone that you would like to would have access, we would provide access to that. But those are being updated daily. So any bill that is introduced that day, again, is updated and flagged daily. We would also provide any relevant updates on those pieces of legislation daily that would also be added to your tracker. In addition to that, we provide weekly email updates with all actions during the General Assembly for that week, as well as, again, updates on all the legislation that would have an impact that we have identified. We were certainly also willing to do this for numerous clients, would be willing to do weekly calls with anybody that you deem necessary, would also be willing and able to attend any future board meetings where if you would like in-person updates, we would be ready and willing to do that as well. When it comes to engagement, as we identify those pieces of legislation that are important, we would engage on those immediately, but in conjunction and consultation with the board. So as we identify those, we would have conversations on how to appropriately engage, any specific talking points that would be necessary, one-pagers, reading materials, things that those would need to be developed that we would certainly be a part of that process and discussion on. When it comes to outside of just legislation, I mean, as noted before, any regulatory efforts that may be needed, working with appropriate executive branch agencies, whether it's Department of Transportation or anything else, we would also engage and assist in any of those issues as well. Special projects, I mean, we understand when it comes to special projects that it's not just legislation, that there may be appropriations requests too and budgets requests that we would proactively work on if that is a need. But we also understand that while there may be specific requests for budgets, that there also may be existing funding streams within the appropriations process where there may be grants may be applicable to fulfill needs. And we would be ready to identify those opportunities as well as assist in any grant applications and review of those applications as well. As noted before, we have a very active presence at the Capitol during session, daily basis. But that extends to outside of session as well. As we've seen more and more, a lot of that work and those committee meetings take place outside of legislative session during the off season. Our team travels to states and meets with legislators on a routine basis, but also monitoring any other meetings that may take place outside of legislative session. During meetings during the session, again, as we identify that legislation, if there is an opportunity for us to identify a need to testify in a committee, we would assist in coordinating that with you, whether it's on your behalf or having somebody come and testify in the appropriate committee meeting. That extends to coordinating visits outside of just committee meetings as well. Legislative days at the Capitol, if you're making visits, if we need to coordinate again and set up meetings on your behalf, we are ready and willing to do that, and we'll do that. Happy to have Skin and Boyd note anything that I may have left out, and then happy to open it up for questions as well.
Absolutely.
One other thing I didn't mention though is that it was noted in outside of legislative activities when it comes to additional communications as well. We have done that with other clients and would be willing to do that as well when it comes to media communications, any other special projects as well. So.
Be glad to answer any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I'll start. What we've told the other folks that have come in, I think we're really kind of a two-track assistance that we need. One is just any general discussion that's going on in the transportation space, that we're a part of that. Have a eyes and ears. And then we know MARTA dominates sort of the transit space, but we're unique. We have ferry service. We're a growing area. We want to be part of those conversations. So I think just making sure that CAT is represented and knows what's going to happen, how we're impacted. I think that's a big part.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And then the second piece is we were left out of our SPLOST program that was approved in November. And that typically has funded our replacement of buses and bus stop improvements and those capital kind of needs. So we need to be super creative and really think through how do we locally, we're not asking for all federal and state, but we need to be really creative as we think about how do we address those capital needs as we go. The funding mechanism that we have right now, we as a board, I think, really want to take a hard look at that and see if there are other ways, better ways that we can think about how to fund our transit needs, both here in Savannah and around the region as well. So there's a lot of opportunity here to think through that, have a good strategic partner that's thinking through all those different ways. We have kind of a short-term capital project, hole that we've got to fill, but also as a community, what do we want to do from a long-term perspective? And then we got other, examples around the state to follow as well.
Really quickly before you answer, one of the things I wanted to tag on to what Bert was saying to do about that. I think that we're in terms of those tracks, and I think in terms of that funding space, we're also thinking about, we understand that this session, there may be some unique opportunities for some one-time capital funding requests. And if that's the case, that could help us with some of the things that the immediate SPLOST impact is having on us in terms of capital match availability and all those kinds of things. And then Bert alluded to, one of the things that we've been looking at with some interest is what Athens-Clarke County's transit system did with, or what the county did, the consolidated government did, and then impacting their transit system with a T-SPLOST, a fractional T-SPLOST, that because of the unique wording of transportation purposes, they were able to extend that into operations funding, which, is just absolutely critical for most transit systems. So the notion of trying to take their lessons learned and their success story and figure out, is there that same kind of opportunity down here for us? Because one of the things that we have here that you won't find anywhere else in the state, So we're the only transit system in the state that has what's called a special transit tax district. It's a village-based district.
Okay.
And it's not levied throughout the county. It's only levied by those who by referendum opted in, and that includes the city of Savannah, a couple of areas within unincorporated Chatham County, and then a portion of Garden City. So you can tell it's not as expansive as what is really needed to really fully support the system. So the notion of trying to think about, are there opportunities, and that's not immediate, but in a longer, more strategic perspective, are there opportunities for us to look at what Athens County has done and figure out, is that transferable here, and how would we navigate that here to be a potentially a replacement source, so you're swapping out one for the other, so to speak. So anyway, there's all of the above, but I think in terms of that immediate, is this session a session where we might be uniquely positioned for some one-time capital?
And I'll have some, if you, I hate to interrupt, but I'll have a couple of questions in connection with your SPOS, the way in which it was voted, what the approval process was for that. Again, because of my local government experience being involved with issuance of bonds, being, the reporting requirements, there's some things that I'd like to talk with you about, after the fact, so.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, as we started preparing for this, we learned about the SPOS situation, and that's very unfortunate. And we started talking about what could be some ways to come at that. And I think y'all touched on those. We talked about the potential SPOS. Among ourselves, we also talked about the governor has about $14 billion sitting in the bank. Bert knows a little bit about that, as does Brad. Yeah, but there are some possible opportunities there for some one-time grants that maybe could get you over the hump for a little while before we can come up with some other more regular funding mechanisms. But we can sit down and get creative with y'all on that. But we also talked about as well working with Jack Kingston. Maybe there's potential for some. If we could get some state funds matching, get some federal funds drawn down, if we can get some state funds to match part of that. So we think there's some avenues there. We became aware of this, so we're already kind of got our thinking process.
Well, yeah, Burton's much more, astute about the specific value, but I'd like to know on Georgia. So tell us, that's 21 years running best lobbyist. What is that recipe? What is that? What's the DNA? What's the blocking and tackling? Your fundamentals that lead to that consistency.
Let me take just a shot at that. Thanks for the question. So, it's Skin mentioned in 91 Trip put together Georgia Link. I was actually the lawyer that incorporated it for him. I was still serving in the legislature at the time, but then when I got out, he and I started working together. So I think the formula has been the long term. We've been a part of this firm for, I have since 1993. Skin joined us. We've been consistent. We get along real well. We have a good time together, but we work hard. And I think that's been part of our success. Our families are friends. We do things together. We don't just show up at the Capitol for the 40 days of the General Assembly. We continue this year round. And that may not be unique to other people that you've talked to today, but we think it's unique among the six of us. Now, Elise and Brad just joined us during the last year, but that's, we think, great additions to our firm. Jay's been with us for six years now. We think that consistency has made a big difference for us in terms of our respect at the Capitol.
The other thing I would add, let me stand up so I can see it. The other thing I would add, and Boyd touched on this earlier, you see some firms in Atlanta that are sort of heavily Democratic firms or heavily Republican firms. We make a conscious effort to be a very bipartisan firm. We work with both sides of the aisle. The Republicans, of course, have a little bit, frankly. And but the committees sometimes, the margins are very, very tight. If you can't work both sides, you're not going to be successful. Very hard, as Boyd mentioned, Legislative Black Caucus, which is the largest legislative Black caucus in the country, the Women's Caucus, the Rural Caucus. So we try to cover the waterfront there and not just be one that's tied directly to, quote, the Republicans or the Democrats, depending on who's in the majority.
Thank you. So,
I think that the priorities have been clearly defined for the authority. Of course, I think the panel understands what loss of SPLOST 8 revenue has done to
Devastating.
CAD. I think, however, though, that through financial planning, we have a little to carry us to a certain point, but it's the capital piece that is really priority, dealing with an aged fleet, with the growth across the river, Hutchinson Island, the need for the expansion of the ferry system. I think you all understand how critical it is.
Yes, ma'am.
That we become more financially independent and not relying upon a millage and sales tax versus millage is really a better picture. And that's where we are. We have a master plan that not only addresses the needs of Savannah-Chatham County, but also within the region. And all of that costs money, particularly the capital piece, and working with GDOT as it relates to the requirements of the roadway, express lanes, so on and so forth. So we have a big challenge ahead of us, and we need strong advocacy to meet the needs of that national plan.
Absolutely. Yeah, just having been back and forth down here to Savannah and Chatham County the last few years, I mean, the growth has just been phenomenal. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, everywhere I look, I see cranes and buildings and homes and condos and everything else going up. So I know that falls on y'all, and you've got to have some answers for that. Yeah,
Is for not just during the legislative session, but all the time, is that we're viewed not as a part of the transportation system, honestly, but we're viewed, because the transportation system is viewed as an economic development. Tools are that factor. That's what we were to do. And we need to always be giving voice and, our business case to support that when we're making requests, and also when we're just advocating even for the longer term picture. Here is that we absolutely are that, and we should be viewed that way.
I assume you have, and I need to ask, with a client list like y'all, you've already run the conflicts or looked at,
nope, no, we don't see anything at all. No, we don't represent any other transit systems or anything
I
like
assume you
that.
will come all the way down here for that.
Appreciate the question.
Important to.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, but yeah, we're fine.
Anything else? Thank you, guys.
Mr. Chairman, thank
Thank
y'all.
y'all.
Well,
Thank
thank
you
y'all
for
for
your
your time.
time.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you so much.
We know you put in a lot of time today,
Yes.
so thank you. And I have a real appreciation for that, being a local government lawyer, so I understand.
Thank y'all. If there's anything else you need from us, just let us know.
Definitely will. Thank you, guys. Bye. Well, we have item number 4, which is our old and new business that was tabled in November.
Yes, sir, that's correct. I'm not sure if the board is ready to make a decision this evening, so that's just the table item.
We have something for discussion. We want to discuss it. I mean, the floor is open for discussion. You gotta move with that.
So, I'd love to open this because I mentioned it last meeting. I'm friends with most all of these folks, and I really, while I wanted to participate in the discussion to have made more, sure we, had a good discussion. I don't feel super comfortable, choosing between friends. And so my preference is to not vote. I'm certainly happy to, again, I know the process very well, I know the people, glad to participate in the discussion. But I wonder with me not voting, and obviously Barry Owens got a call yet legal stuff, and I don't know if the mayor's still on. We may not have a forum if I don't vote. I mean, I'm happy to vote to move it forward. It feels, I just have, personal friendships with
The only
virtually
thing I'm
everybody.
concerned about that is not voting today is guys, we're already behind. We're behind. And we need to get somebody in place and start.
May I say something?
Yes,
Yeah, ma'am.
I am still on. I have heard all of the presentations, and I think we have been behind long enough. I think that we should go ahead and take a vote, and I think that you should vote. I mean, we're in Savannah. We know these people. I don't think you should recuse yourself from voting just because you know them. I have enough confidence in you as a person to know that you're going to vote for whether they're your friend or not, the person that you think or the group that you think is best for the position. So I would like us to take a vote today, and I would like you to be a part of that vote.
Thank you for coaching me up.
Yes, sir. So. Look, should we make a motion? Yeah, I'd like to hear from staff, about your thoughts. You've done the work on this. I'd like to hear what your recommendation is. I'm sure the procedure, but maybe help based on your recommendation.
As it relates to the presenters.
Yes, to these firms.
Think, and I shared it with Andrew. We had comments that indicated that the priorities were not clear. I think the board in defining what those priorities are, that has and which that should have an impact on who we choose. You've heard their proposals. And the way I look at it as who is best to address those priorities. And I think that's what we need to be thinking of. Now, just listening to the proposals, I have two that I thought very highly of. But I would like legal confirmation as to how it lines up with our evaluation. I think today gave us an opportunity to clearly define the priorities, wherein they're saying it was not clear in the proposal. So in order to keep the procurement process legitimate and legal, I think maybe 24, 48 hours, asking each of them to clearly define their strategies that meets our priorities, that we clarified today.
So can we narrow it down to two, and ask those two?
I mean, the evaluation team has presented, I think, the ranking is, where is it?
If you can refresh our memory on that, that'd be helpful.
I believe number one was Denton. I think Peachtree and maybe Georgia Public Affairs were the others, if I recall correctly. Your evaluations, what were they? Came from the committee, that came from the committee, who were the top three?
The top three, I'll check on that.
Oh, you know.
And who did the evaluation?
It was Ms. Dumas, the clerk of council with the city of Savannah. Reached out to, I understand procurement reached out to Mark Dana, but he did not submit any evaluation.
The two teams that stood out in my mind, and today was my first day hearing any presentations from the lobbyists. Number one was Georgia Public Affairs, and number two was Peachtree. But that's just from today, having heard from them.
For, just for the record, Beverly had a very good point, which is your decision whether or not to recuse
is separate and apart from any Open Meetings Act analysis. So you're here, we have a quorum. You can vote, not vote. It doesn't affect the validity of the vote because we've got a quorum. for the
Okay.
meeting.
Okay.
Right.
We don't need a majority of the board, it just needs to be
Right.
majority of the. quorum.
Majority, right,
Yeah,
right.
Good. Excellent.
So
Um,
now I think, Victor, we need the evaluation to
Yeah, right.
see if whomever the board.
Mr. Wright is time limited as well, and so,
Right.
I mean, you know, I personally don't think, my view of this is, I don't think that, and we needs to be done in the next couple of days. I don't think today gets you anything that tomorrow or Friday doesn't get you. Having said that, I mean, I don't know if anybody's, minds are gonna change over the next day as you think about it and, consume it as well. But, legislature starts on Monday. The first week, as you heard, is a lot of ceremonial stuff, and then it's budget week. I mean, and the governor's budget is already done at this point. So, hiring somebody today is not gonna, I don't know if we can get into we're not gonna get into the governor's budget. So,
I just think clarity on those priorities means a lot because several proposers brought up they were not clear.
I thought we made it clear to me, and I thought we did. What
We
you asked.
did.
We
Yeah.
made it clear
We
and they
did.
responded.
We did, but what will their strategy be to meet those priorities is what I'm saying. And if we ask them what those strategies are, maybe that, I think that would confirm legality of the procurement process. Because that was something that came up today, that several, not just one, but several.
You're saying you want to give them the opportunity to change the contours of their proposals based on what they learned today?
Absolutely, their strategy for going to the delegation to get us what we need to meet the priorities that were clearly defined today.
How did the evaluation process evaluating clear or conflicts of interest?
Well, if it's a conflict, that has to be considered as a part of the evaluation process. And I would think the evaluation committee did that. Now, one that I clearly saw where it was a conflict was among the top three. A clear conflict. And see, a lot of things that came out today, to me, provides clarity on which way we need to go. And remain compliant with our
There was a
procurement
conflict
policy.
that was revealed
That's correct.
that had not been called to teaching prior to today, and I think that's an important one to acknowledge and figure out.
for those trying to break, and also ask about cost. What is what's the cost situation?
Well, it was said once, a proposer was agreed upon, the cost would be negotiated,
Okay.
and that was the board's.
So cost doesn't factor into the evaluation.
One thing I'd like to suggest is however the ultimate award comes out, I hope that we can do the award. I know that this was for a 3-year agreement. But if we could structure that 3-year agreement where it is a 3-year agreement, but with annual renewals, and those annual renewals are based on need and performance. So that way, really, it's only a 1-year contract. It's a 1-year contract, the opportunity for year 2. And then it's that year with an opportunity for year 3. But there's no guaranteed 3-year contract. And I think especially in the place that we're in right now with we've been sitting here all afternoon describing to everyone who's been in here about all of the uncertainties and challenges and dilemmas and opportunities that we have before us. And you can well imagine that between this session and the one next year, the dynamics will even changing. And there will be changes in the legislative composition. There's all kinds of things. And we just need that's different from how federal level functions. I think the federal award that we've already got out there is solid and good, but this we need to take some more, be more tempered. Award, so I would suggest that however the award goes, it's an award that has required annual renewals on need.
That question was, proposed to legal, and, Andrew is going to look into that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you've added a little more. I don't see why we couldn't structure it that way when we write the contract. We still have to write the contract. We still have to negotiate a contract with whoever we decide wins. And so I think we can certainly do that.
I'm trying to remember if the RFP referenced a 3-year, and that was just my concern. I've been going,
I don't know what the.
I haven't been able.
So, could we ask each of them, and it needs to be brief? I mean, could we ask each of them to Stephanie's point? I mean, if we limit it to 1 page, I don't know if there's something to be responsive to, you know, what we gave them today. That's another step in the process?
Change their strategy, I think that's what Stephanie's.
Yeah,
strategy was.
does it change their
It does
strategy?
change their strategy,
They
so,
clearly
does it
doesn't.
sharpen their strategy?
Yes.
And so,
Yes.
For me, that clarification would be helpful, 'cause I don't know that I learned enough today to make an intelligent decision. I know that you had that information, spread with all of them.
Right.
And I don't know them.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know how I felt about the person, so here, that, sure. I don't know that I learned enough today to give you a good ranking.
Yeah.
Personally, and my experience has been that the staff, provides recommendation that the board votes on. But I don't know if that's the process for this. Can we just take the vote who would like and narrow it down, or?
Well, that's CAT's policy.
Okay.
The recommendation, comes, from staff. What was beneficial to me was to hear the concerns of the board and to ensure, that our recommendation, is on point, and that's why I would like clarity, since we define the priorities. So that's my point.
You know,
And just to be clear, we shouldn't be discussing the evaluations in public just yet. And so, you know, y'all can have them and reference them, but.
I would just say, I mean, my experience is that, you know, very difficult from a written perspective to judge someone's fit and, you know, and so it's, you know, it's just hard. I mean, it's not like bidding on a maintenance facility that needs this much steel, this much concrete. I mean, most of this is how much do we trust them, how much do they trust us, how do we work well together? It really is, it's just, unfortunately, it's hard on a page to, you know, to.
Important to hear, it was important for you to participate and to also hear your perspectives, not to put you on the spot here, but to your point, these are difficult things to evaluate on paper. And most evaluation teams are not gonna have the legislative experience or the lobbyist experience to know even what they're evaluating on paper. And so, and that's no slam to any of the evaluation team, I'm just saying that's, do you know what I mean? And so, but you have been uniquely situated in a political environment that afforded that vantage point of what are the kinds of things that translate, what works, what doesn't work, who really does. It's so completely and entirely relationship driven. That the notion of understanding those relationships is really critical, because regardless of who we get, we're gonna be spending money and probably a lot of them to make sure that we get the, you know what I mean? And so I think it is important, without putting you on the spot, I think it's important that we hear this, because you are uniquely positioned amongst anybody in this room to have that experience and perspective. That would be both.
So that's the judge started walking that slide.
Yeah. Even though I'm friends with all of them bring, you heard it, they bring different experiences, different relationships, different, they all bring that, and I don't have any problem at all, talking through which of those matter more than others in my perspective and all that. I guess ultimately, it's just, well, I appreciate Mary's trust in me. I really do. That makes me feel great. At the same time, there's friendships that I don't want to, like between friends either. So I'm glad, I'm excited to participate in the discussion about it and think through, but, ultimately, but just, and look, and I'll say this too, I mean, they'll all be great. Any of them will be fine. Like this is a, if somebody cuts your grass, they cut your grass, right? Everybody's got lawnmowers, right? And so, any of them, we've got a great group there, and they'll all do fine. But, like anything, there's some that do better than others.
But it's relationships.
Yeah, and it's, are they gonna get distracted? Is there, one of their other clients becomes the biggest issue of the session, and now they're distracted on that? That's not something we can predict, not something we know ahead of time. It just sort of is what it is. And we become the biggest client that gets, that becomes an issue, right? So.
There are people who have strong relationships, and there are people who have dating relationships, and then there are people who have got crossways with somebody since the last session. And knowing and understanding all those kinds of things is important. In order to, get the most effectiveness out of those resources.
And, appointed me, I mean, Greg Owens is in this world too, right?
Yeah.
And he's up there a lot and so, yeah. So,
But there is a conflict that we need to.
That's
run
right.
to ground, so that, we may be dealing with 4 and not 5, is my point. So,
And we have to protect the integrity of the procurement process.
absolutely,
We have to do that.
absolutely.
We have to have, if there's a difference, we have to have a valid reason. I think, reason 1 is clarity on priorities, which were not specified. And then whether or not there is, a conflict of interest. Those are valid. Yes.
So be clear, we're gonna send a letter and ask, or where we at this moment.
I think that's what's.
That's what I would suggest.
Send that letter.
That we have procurement, send a request, asking that they outline their strategy to addressing the priorities as defined. Give them, most of them probably have already been thinking about it. 48 hours or no more than 48 hours. No more than 48 hours to respond. And you all take action.
Mr. Burke might be helpful with the help staff craft the questions, so
That's
way,
right.
just because he's asking, sort of setting up this clarification.
Have no problem with that as long as it's in line with the priorities, that we have to always protect the integrity of the procurement process.
Would it be consistent with what was said?
Yes.
About
Yes.
about the 2 tracks.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So it's best to table this item and give more information. To what
Yes, I guess this was our, into a special call meeting.
So we come back at the special call meeting just to take action on this item. Well,
You need a motion to table? No.
We never, and we'll take it off the table. We didn't make a motion to take it off the table.
Right, okay, that's right, it was on there.
So we have one, item 5, someone make a motion and go into executive session.
Yeah, and I can promise you, this will be quick, we've got an outside counsel, waiting, and it's a 5-minute to 10-minute thing, and then we're done.
Thank you.
Yes.
The last time, can you go ahead and confirm for us through Ms. Better so she can inform us that there's no issue with awarding the contract with annual renewals as we just discussed.
Right, and I mean, I believe that to be the case. But you know, the contract hasn't been negotiated, the language that was put out in the solicitation was general. You know, if they don't want to, do what we're asking, we can go to the next one, yeah.
Thank you.
Right, so, and I know you all probably need a break, but is everybody okay with just running through this in the next few minutes? So we need a motion and a second to go into executive session then.
It will be here meeting. Unfortunately, we've lost our in-person form, so the board would not be able to take action.
So we just.
I'm still
Well,
still
there's
here.
no actions to take.
We have to
Oh.
go into a closed session, that's the action.
Oh,
So we've lost any.
can we end the meeting and just have conversations? This is not a quorum of the board with the attorney?
No.
It becomes public. It becomes public.
What's up, Rob?
It's-
Quorum, so then.
No, but it's a legal matter. It's about litigation.
So we'll just have to, maybe this can carry over to the meeting in a couple of days where we come back to this.
Yeah, we'll have to do that. I guess we'll have to do that.
That is carried on to that.
So we no longer have a quorum?
We no longer have an in-person.
In-person forum.
Okay.
We lost Mr. Bright.
Okay, I'll tell, Carrie,
She came from Atlanta.
she didn't come down.
Oh.
Yeah, she's just on the phone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, just, we're gonna have another scheduled meeting this week sometime.
yeah.
I'm right here. That's fine. I'll make myself available for you.
Oh,
Thank you.
Carrie.
I can be available whenever you guys want to talk.
It's a long story short, we lost our in-person forum, so we
No
don't have
worries.
a mechanism to talk to you in executive session today.
Okay.
But it turns out the board will have another special call meeting in the next few days, and we'll schedule that with you, okay?
No problem. Just let me know and I'll be here.
Okay, thank you all.
No problem. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Carrie. Sorry.
No worries.
Okay, perfect.
We lost the right.
Being that we don't have an in-person forum and we don't have an executive session, want to move that we adjourn this meeting. Our next regular scheduled meeting of the board of directors will be Tuesday, January 27th, 2026, that's the fourth Tuesday at 4 p.m. If there's nothing else from anybody, I'll move to adjourn. Okay. I got to.
Have a good evening.
Thank you, Mary.
Bye, Mary.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.